Hello guys and welcome back to my channel. So today I'm continuing on with like the hashtag career section of my channel, and today we're going to discuss whether or not you should quit your job. I'm not really here to kind of give you an answer like yes you should quit your job or no you should not quit your job. What my intention of this video is to allow you to make an informed decision as to whether or not it's time for you to leave your job in consideration of what I would consider to be some really key factors. So if you're at that point in your career or in your time with your job and you're wondering, oh my god, I think it's time to move on, then I think this would be a really good video for you, just to help you clarify how you're feeling and I guess really just give you the tools in order to make that decision. So if you're interested, just keep watching. The first thing that I would do would be literally just maybe go to a coffee shop, go somewhere you're not going to be interrupted, get your notepad and pen and write out a pros and cons list of your job. So it could be something like, well, I really like the people but I don't like the work, or vice versa, or I get paid really well but it's not really what I want to do. Out of your pros and cons list you'll really get what is bothering you about your job, and at that point you can make a decision, well, are these things that I can fix within my job? Like, okay, I don't like the people but I really like my job, can I move to another team? Or, well, I'm on this team and I really like it but I'm actually not really fulfilled with the work that I do. Is that something that you can talk to your manager about? So making that pros and cons list is really going to highlight what is bothering you about your job, and then you can work on working on that. However, if you're at the point where you're like, I don't like my team, I don't like the work, I don't like the company, then that's definitely a situation where you're going to have to follow these next steps. So after you make your pros and cons list, what I would do is break your kind of thoughts into a couple of different sections. And the very first section, and in my opinion the absolute most important section, is happiness. So does your job make you happy? Are you happy? Are you going into your job really happy? Naturally enough, happiness in terms of your job is going to spill out into your personal life. So if you're really unhappy in work, that is going to bleed out into your personal life. Your partner, your family are going to see that in you and it's going to affect you, like 100% it's going to affect you. So maybe in the happiness section, an action that you could take in this section is having a conversation with your partner or your family or your friends and just say, how do you think I am? Do you think that I appear happy, or has anything changed in me? When I was told by my parents at one point when I was in a job and they were kind of like, Amy, you need to start moving on, you need to start looking for something else because this job is just not, it's not doing you any favors. At that point I was like, wow, okay, somebody that really cares for me, loves me, has that opinion, and I'm going to take that on board. And for me it was a big wake-up call, because I kind of thought, if they're seeing that change in me and in my happiness, then that's a big deal, because the danger is that you don't see it for yourself. And sometimes you can be so institutionalized, or you can be in a job for a certain length of time and you don't actually notice that your happiness is being compromised, or you're being treated in a way within your job that's just making you feel horrible about yourself, affecting your self-esteem, affecting your confidence. I have come out of jobs where I've been in really negative environments and my confidence has taken a massive hit. So you might not, like I was not, be aware of that. I wasn't aware of that whatsoever, so be conscious of that as well. Your happiness is absolutely key. So if your job is not giving you happiness, that's when I would, ask myself, is it time to quit your job? The next point that I would consider, and I'll be completely honest, this is a point that if I sat here talking to you about this 5 or 6 months ago, I wouldn't have considered this because I wasn't really aware of it being a factor. But the next point I'm going to talk to you about is value. Valuing yourself, how much you are valued within a company, and how much you're being paid, I guess, is another kind of way in which we assess how we are valued within a company. Sometimes what can happen is that you're valued by your team that work very closely with you, but you don't feel valued by the general company or the wider company, or maybe your managing director or your management team. You don't feel valued in that sense. So that's another question that I would ask myself. Am I valued within this company? So I would also say that how you value yourself is going to be pretty much directly aligned with how you will be valued within a company. And again, this is something that I've only really learned in the last couple of months. I have not valued myself in the past. I have said yes to absolutely everything in work and not felt valued, and I wasn't valued. And then I leave and people will go, oh, but you're actually really good. And I'm like, okay, that's great. Why didn't you tell me that when I was here? You know, that kind of way. I wasn't kind of being, my value wasn't being explained to me, or people weren't expressing how much they value me until I was like, I'm out of here, I'm not being valued. So that's another question that I would always ask myself when I'm considering, will I quit my job? How valued am I in this team? How much do I value myself, and how much do I expect the company to value me? The next point that I would consider, and a lot of these are probably biased in the sense that like these are things that I would have learned in the last couple of years in jobs and how I would have made decisions on whether or not I'm going to quit my job. But the next one I'm going to talk to you about is working time. So if you are contracted to do a 37.5-hour week and you're doing a 50-hour week, that is a big deal. So many companies have a culture of, well, Amy stayed like an hour late like last night, she's great. And that's wrong. That's totally and completely wrong. If you cannot do your work within the time you are given, that is poor time management. And that's not to say that you're bad at managing your time. That's also to say that you're being given too much work. You've been given so much work that you feel like you need to stay and do an extra 2 or 3 hours a day. So that goes back to both your manager, your management team, and it's a reflection on yourself as well. I know from myself, so many times in jobs, I would go in early and I would leave late, and I would never feel fully like I had gotten any more done than what I was doing between like 9 and 5, depending on the hours that I was working. So I think as well, that ties into if you are bringing work home, if you're checking email on the weekend. Now, some people have jobs where that's necessary, and that's totally fine. And I think if you're in a very, very senior management position and you know, look, if I don't check this email, it will have a detrimental effect on the business, that's fine. And if that's kind of stipulated to you when you join the company that, look, you're going to be expected to answer email on weekend and you're going to be expected to, take calls after hours, then that's fine, as long as you feel, again, that you're getting the value of that. You're doing that work and you're getting that value. But back to working hours. Sticking within your working hours, and also sticking within your restrictions, your personal restrictions on not checking email at the weekend, not taking calls at the weekend, trying not to do work on your time off. We all need downtime, and there is no quicker way for you to become burnt out than if you are working every single hour under the sun, every single hour that you're awake for. You're not going to get burnout any quicker than if you do it that way. On the subject of burnout, because I think it's a really, really important subject, I'm going to pop in a little illustration. I have it here on my phone because I forget who it actually is. The page on Instagram is called Journey to Wellness, and they have this amazing little illustration of signs of burnout. And I saw this and it rang so many alarm bells for me that I put it up on my Instagram page, and so many people contacted me and was like, thank you for sharing that. It's made me realise that I'm burnt out. And there is no quicker way to become burnt out than doing too much work, doing too much time, and not getting your breaks. Also, your evening times, your personal time in the evening, working like from 8 in the morning till 8 at night, like, unless you're a doctor or somebody that unfortunately has to have those kinds of hours, there's no way around it, but you are entitled to your rest breaks. And if you're answering email till 11, 12 o'clock at night and going in at 7 o'clock in the morning, then that's another little chat that you have to have with yourself. Because sometimes, and I am wholeheartedly will put my hand up, and I'm sometimes like totally guilty of this, sometimes we're our own worst enemies and we feel like we need to do this in order to get ahead and do what we need to do. But let me tell you from experience that you will burn out. And again, if you're not feeling valued and you're not happy, you're working too many hours, you're going to want to quit your job. Trust me. Another point then, when you're considering whether or not you should quit your job, is communication. And this is going to be different for everybody. Not everybody is going to have the same types of relationships with their managers or their co-workers as another person will. So I think if you're considering quitting your job and you're very close to your manager, or you have a good working relationship with somebody, and you can go to them and say, look, I'm really not happy, I'm actually considering quitting, Can we work on something? Is there something that we can do? A lot of times you might not feel comfortable to do that. That's fine. That's probably the majority of the cases. People wouldn't feel comfortable doing that and they won't. But if you can communicate with your manager or communicate with a work colleague or somebody and just kind of get a sense of, you know, can something be changed? Like if it was a case where you really liked where you worked, you really liked your team, but you just didn't like your job or you didn't like the tasks that you were being given, then that would be a case of, well, look, we'll try and move you on to another project. We'll try and facilitate you to like your job a little bit better. Not every company is going to be that open, but if you want to and if you can, have that conversation with a manager or somebody within your job, communicate that to them, and then if you do make a decision to quit your job, you'll have gone down that avenue as well, and they kind of won't be like, whoa, we didn't realize you were unhappy. So you'll have kind of ticked that box as well, and you'll have given the company every chance to have their impact on whether or not you're going to quit. So the last point that I want to talk to you about is fear. So fear in lots of senses of the word. Fear in the sense of the fear, which some people will refer to when you're hungover, but you can also have the Sunday evening fear, which is like the fear of going back to work. And I don't know about you guys, maybe some of you don't remember this, but I grew up in like the Glenroe era, where on a Sunday night at 10 to 9 when Glenroe finished and you heard that theme tune, you knew then it was like time to get ready for bed, time to get your school bag ready for the morning, and that instilled fear that was like, oh, I have to go to school tomorrow, and it was like horrible, like anxious feelings of ugh, just the week ahead. You can get that thinking of work as well, you know, you can definitely have that fear on a Sunday night. And I know that it's been said to me before, like my husband used to say to me in previous jobs that I would be, you know, from about 3 o'clock on the Sunday evening onwards, I'd be in work mode, I'd be talking about work. And obviously I didn't realise I was doing it, which is weird, but I didn't realise that I was having like conversations with him about, oh, I have to do this, this and this, and the week is going to be crazy, and I was worrying and thinking about things. So a lot of us suffer from that Sunday night fear, and it's only when you come out of it. I don't have it anymore with my new job, thankfully, but it's only when you come out of it and you look back and you're like, oh, that's actually really sad that I spent half of my Sunday, so like a quarter of my weekend, actually dreading the week ahead. Also, when that fear kind of goes into the week, so every evening you have the fear of the next day, that is a red flag if ever you see a red flag. If every morning you wake up, and I've had it so many times and it's horrible, when you wake up and you have a sick feeling in your stomach, you're anxious going into work, you're dreading the day, you're thinking of all the awful things that could happen and probably won't, but you're thinking about those things, then for your health it's so important that you consider moving on, changing your job, or making some sort of change. I think fear in your job, in your working environment, in your working life, it shouldn't be a thing. It just shouldn't exist, because you shouldn't ever feel fearful or scared, or like you're going to feel worried because you're working at something that you're passionate about, something that you care about to a point. You mightn't really care that much about it, but you'll care enough at times to be a little bit stressed or a little bit worried. But when it comes to a point where you're fearful or you're scared, that really is a red flag, and it's something that you should address immediately once you feel those kind of feelings. If you at any point cry, and I'm all for crying and having to go cry and letting it all out, but if either going into work you're crying or leaving work you're crying, or on your lunch break you're crying, then again that's something that needs to be addressed. That is not normal. Don't let anyone tell you, or don't try and convince yourself that that's normal, because it isn't. I've had situations where I would have had such a stressful day in previous jobs years ago. I'd have had such a stressful day that I'd pull the car up outside my house and I would cry for 20 minutes before I get out of the car to go in to my house. It was just such a ball of pent up frustration and annoyance and stress that I just cried, and it was a horrible, horrible feeling, and I'd hate for anyone to have that feeling. So if you're getting to that stage where you're getting tearful, or you're, you know, on the verge of tears, then you really need to figure out what you're going to do about that and make decisions. Ask yourself, is the job worth your tears? Spoiler, the answer is no. So guys, that is it. Thank you so much for watching. That was a really quick little video on points you should consider if you're thinking of quitting your job. I hope it was helpful. If it was, do please let me know. And also, if you've any other feedback or you've anything you want to add to the conversation, pop it in the comments below. That's kind of it. I will see you next time. Bye.